Welcome to Home Buying Made Easy podcast, and we are designing this specifically so that people who are in their home buying journey can really understand the process and not have to deal with all the mortgage lingo and stuff like that. I'm Michael, and I have Rachel with me as well. She is one of my 12 kids, and she kind of is fielding the questions and that kind of stuff. So we're going to get started. How are you, Rachel?
Hello. Today we are going to talk about first-time home buyers.
First-time home buyers.
Because that's where we all got to start. We all got to start somewhere.
That's true. And part of the reason I even wanted to start the Home Buying Made Easy podcast was because I have 12 kids and I have to close deals. But not only that, I want to be able to give them the tips and tricks of the trade, and giving them a bunch of lingo and fancy words doesn't really help. So we wanted to make it super simple. And that's what the whole podcast is about.
Here we are.
So do you have like a list of questions from first-time home buyers, or?
I don't, but we're just going to talk lingo and kind of what the different loans are and what different things that you'll hear when you're filling out applications and going through the journey of buying your first house.
Gotcha. Well, I guess if you're going to start in the beginning, we start with the word pre-approval. Pre-approval is a specific word that's used when you're going to be going house hunting, because if you go talk to a realtor, they're going to say, are you pre-approved? Well, what does pre-approved mean? Pre-approved is just the simple term of you filled out a mortgage application, which is all your personal information. And then after you fill out all that information, you're going to turn in some documents. There'll be some basic documents like your past W-2s and your pay stubs and some bank statements, simple things like that. And then a mortgage loan officer that's licensed to do this will then go through all those documents. They'll run your credit. They'll figure everything out and figure out what you are pre-approved for, the amount. Now, that pre-approval, you have to be very careful, because sometimes there's loan officers that will pre-approve you for more than you really want to pay. So let's say they can approve you for $1 million. If they approve you for $1 million, it may not go well if you find out that mortgage payment is like $7,000 a month or whatever. You may not want to try to do that. The good news is there are guidelines that are put in place, or guardrails, if you want to call them that don't allow you to go over a certain amount. You have to keep it within a range for what your debt is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we'll get into debt and debt to income ratio. That's
right.
Another big term, and we'll get into all that in a little bit later. But that's the basics of what pre-approval means.
Okay. So after I get pre-approved, what is the next step in the eyes of a loan officer? Where do I go next?
Happy house hunting. It's time to house hunt.
Okay.
And if you're pre-approved, at that point, we're on hold. As a loan officer, I'm on hold at that point, because you're out shopping for a house.
Right.
So once you know what that amount is, whatever the pre-approval amount is, let's say you were pre-approved for $350,000 to purchase a house. And I always like to tell my clients, just because you're pre-approved for that doesn't mean that's what you want your payment to be. So you really need to find out after you get that pre-approval. You really need to understand what it looks like that payment's going to be. Because if you've been paying rent and you've been paying $1,200 per month in your rent, and now all of a sudden you're going to have to make a mortgage payment and it's $2,500, that's called payment shock.
Right.
That's a lot of shock, because that's way higher than what you were paying before.
Okay.
Now, if you're good with the change in payment, that's okay. But I like to make sure that clients are well aware of what they need to do and what their payment's going to be.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then if I get pre-approved for $350,000, then that is how much my house can be, or what are all the costs that go into closing and paying for realtor, and what are all of the what are all the payments that I have to make within the guardrails?
Within the guardrail, or you talking about for closing?
Yes. So
Okay.
I get $350,000 for my pre-approval. How much of that is closing, or is it all housing? Is it all like what's the breakdown of?
That's a great question. Okay,
pre-approval?
so that's going to depend on the loan type, but let's start with the pre-approval piece that you're talking about. If you're at $350,000 and that's what you're pre-approved for, that's the cost of the house.
Mhm.
So what we've done is we've gone in and done all the work and taken the guesswork out. So if you have a down payment, some loan types have down payments. Some loan types don't have down payments. They just have like a VA loan.
Mhm.
The VA loan is a 100% loan. There's no down payment in most cases. So in that case, you're pre-approved for $350,000 at that loan amount. If you're pre-approved with a conventional loan and you're putting 5% down, that 5% down payment that you're going to put down of $350,000 at 5%, your loan amount is going to be lower, but your max purchase price is $350,000.
Okay.
Now that is just for the house. In addition to that, you talked about closing costs.
Right.
Closing costs are not typically included in the purchase price of the house. Now, in many situations, there are ways for you to negotiate with the seller and potentially have the seller pay part of your closing costs. Seller can't pay your down payment. You still have a minimum requirement in conventional loans and in FHA loans.
Mhm.
But in VA loans, like I said, it's 100%, so it doesn't really apply that way. But you can negotiate the seller credits that would provide part of the money for your closing costs.
Okay.
Closing costs would include anything to, we'll talk at some in a future episode, I'm sure, about what title is and what title means.
Mhm.
But it's title to be able to make sure that the property is free and clear and can be sold. There'll be title, there'll be lender fees, there's credit report fee, appraisal fee, all of these fees. Those are called closing costs, and those are over and above that you would either have to bring that money to closing to cover the closing costs, or the seller would have to pay for it.
Okay.
Does that kind of wrap up that? Okay.
Okay, so you mentioned conventional, you mentioned FHA, you mentioned VA. What are those loans? What do all of them include?
Oh, wow.
Like what?
Great question. Okay. So when I first started in the industry, I didn't even know what Fannie and Freddie were. I thought they were like brother and sister or something like that.
Are they not?
No, they are not. They are two different entities. They're actually mortgage companies that buy loans, and they buy conventional loans. So it's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and both of those companies buy a ton of most of the conventional loans in America. So they have established what they call guidelines, a thick book full of, you can do this, you can't do this, you can do this, you can't do this. So they go into everything, whether you're a W-2 employee, like you get paid hourly, or you get paid salary, or maybe you are self-employed and you have your own business, and those taxes are done a little bit different. They have rules for that. And so guidelines are kind of like rules. Hey, if you're gonna put 5% down and you're going to get a conventional loan, you have to have these items, these documents, and you have to have they just got rid of a credit score minimum. They used to have a credit score minimum, and they just got rid of that because they use more of a credit profile risk assessment. So they've done that, but they have minimum rules that stay within those guardrails to say, hey, you want us to buy this loan from, so you got a lender, a mortgage company that's going to turn around and close your loan, then they're going to sell it to Fannie and Freddie. If they're going to do that, they have to meet those requirements. And so that's Fannie and Freddie. That's for conventional loans, which is probably 70 to 80% of the loans in America are conventional. Moving on to FHA, that's the Housing Administration. So that's a government-backed loan, and a government-backed loan means that HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Mhm.
They have created a product that is a loan specifically guaranteed by the government, by HUD. So that loan is from an FHA perspective. They have different guidelines. Those guidelines are more strict as it relates to the property and what they allow, but more loose when it comes to credit, because maybe it's a first-time home buyer and they're young, like yourself.
Mhm.
And being young, you don't have a long history of established credit.
Right.
So you could get an FHA loan, less money down. They have 3.5% down program. That's the least amount you can do on an FHA loan without going into down payment assistance programs.
Right.
There's a topic we'll talk about some other day, down payment assistance programs. But that's what FHA is. VA is also a government-backed loan. It is government-backed by the VA for veterans specifically. It is only allowed for active duty that have met the minimum requirements to get the VA loan. Past active duty, which is veterans, also National Guard and reserves. So there's different requirements for different groups of those veterans and people, but overall it's designed specifically for veterans.
Right. Okay. And then our last one for this episode is going to be the 50-year mortgage opportunity that has just been released.
Wow.
I know you have a lot of thoughts on it,
This
is probably what's going to bring a lot of people in to buying a new house and like the appeal of it.
It does have the potential to do that, and there are definitely a few pros, a lot of cons on the 50-year for sure. So the Trump administration is trying to put together over the next several months, hopefully in the first part of the year, a opportunity to do a 50-year mortgage. Now, the bad side of this is the interest that accrues over a 50-year period is astronomical. And
it's almost doubling the 30-year. So
it really doesn't. There's not a lot of benefit to it, but it does come with the opportunity potentially to have a lower payment, creating more affordability. So that could be a positive, creating more affordability. The problem comes into most Americans don't have the discipline to get out of that loan in a short period of time. This is going to create a new mindset. The new mindset is I can just kick it down the road further. Well, if you look at the math is not in the favor of the buyer. The math is in the favor of the banks and the lenders, because the amount of interest charged on a 30-year, let's talk about a 15-year. A 15-year, the amount of interest charged is less than a 30.
Right.
So, for an example, if a 15-year was maybe let's say you had a $600,000 loan, $600,000 loan and a 15-year might have 350,000. We'll do the math and we'll share a link with how the math breaks down for this episode. But let's say you had $300,000 in interest on a 15-year. On a 30-year, you're going to have $500,000 or $600,000 worth of interest.
Right.
On a 50-year, it's going to be $1 million. That's how the numbers are going to break down. So you're going to pay on a $500,000 or $600,000 house, you're going to pay $1.5 million for that house over 50 years if you extend that over the term. Now, the national average of people owning a home or not refinancing is only between 4 and 7 years. So between the refinances and people just moving from house to house. So you're not going to really maybe ever see that. But the beginning of that loan, the beginning of that 50 year, if you had a $600,000 payment, the payment on 600,000 is only going to be like maybe $50, $60 principal going towards the principal. Everything else is going to be interest,
Right.
because of the way they front load interest
Right.
on these loans.
Right.
So there's the negative side of the interest. I did see a post on social media that was interesting to me. They compared to, and I'll put this comparison in the link too, or you can reach out to me and we can do the math. But it was a $600,000 30-year and a $600,000 50-year at 6%, and the savings per month was $356 or something like that. So this particular guy was saying, okay, $356, that's not a lot. And yes, you're going to pay $1 million versus $500,000 if you do the 50-year. But if you take that $356 and you every month, without fail, take that $356 and you put that into Bitcoin, in 18 years in Bitcoin, you will have over $500,000. Now that's an interesting principle, because now most people aren't disciplined like that.
Yeah.
Are they really going to put that amount? Because as soon as you start skipping that, your money's going out the window. The power of compound interest on both sides, on the mortgage side of compound interest over time and compound interest in investments, is huge. So that's an interesting thought too. So I guess there could be a positive if you were super disciplined.
Right.
I would say most people are not.
Okay.
So thanks for coming. Thanks for watching, and feel free to share. We're just here to give out the information and help you in your home buying journey.